want to welcome you to this installment of our VWEC Expert Series, in which we ask educational professionals to share their experiences and their insights into ways that virtual worlds can be used to engage students. We will be using closed captioning on YouTube during live streaming. For folks in the audience who prefer text, we will give you the live stream URL and you can watch the text there. Turn off your sound in SL. And oh, yes, please make sure your mics are off. We welcome your questions in text chat in SL during the presentations. Please feel free to get directions regarding your participation in our sign below. Our focus today is on our first ever student challenge, which gives students the opportunity to develop and to showcase their SL building skills. In that context, I'm pleased to introduce two educational builders who will speak for about 15 minutes each, and two students who will briefly share their building experiences. Our builders include Saranac Timeless and Dodge Three Beards. Sorry, Dodge. Sarah, as she is called, is a professor at a major private university in the northeastern United States. In addition, she is a researcher and developer of educational software. You may already know of Sarah because of her work with the Roca Sorrentina project in SL. Our second speaker is Dodge Three Beards Greg Perrier. He is retired from Northern Virginia Community College and oversees the SL program for the college. He has been active in this capacity for 13 years. Our students include Ray Autumn Wolfe, or Rachel Wolf, who is being represented today by Xenia Zauber, and has recently graduated from Peninsula College in Washington State and will share her thoughts on some of the therapeutic benefits of SL and its builds. And secondly, Chandra Lee Hardesty, a recent PhD graduate from the University of New Mexico, and she will help us understand the role of active learning to the virtual world educational experience. Willow Starr was initially scheduled to appear but asked to be excused from today's presentation due to a conflict. We will entertain questions after our speakers and students' presentations. So, without further delay, I introduce you to Saranac Timeless. And Sarah, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Meryl. Thank you very much. And if I sound a little raspy and congested, it's because I'm just getting over a bad bout of RSV virus. And if I end up having to cough, sneeze, or have a sip of water, I'll temporarily turn off my microphone and do that and then get back to you as soon as I can. I'm the owner of two regions in Second Life, Roca Sorrentina and the adjacent Bay of Naples region. You can see a picture of them there. We
For folks in the
managed
audience who
to get them all into one picture. Um, and I've been involved with this project since 2011. And what I want to do today is first give you a little bit of background about me and the project itself. And since we're talking about the Student Build Challenge, I thought I would spend a little time talking about how we went about building and rebuilding what we consider to be an immersive learning environment for both people in Second Life and for students who come in through more traditional means to Second Life. And finally, I'll talk about some possibilities for doing some further immersive experiences if the right teachers come along and want to try to do it. And let me also start out by giving you a little background about myself. I'm actually, my degrees are in computer science and in experimental cognitive psychology. I teach courses in human learning and memory, thinking, problem solving, and also human factors, the science of designing things like computer interfaces and tools and control panels in a way that are intuitively obvious to a
She
human
is a
user.
researcher and developer of education.
Um, I have absolutely no credentials for doing a historical immersive environment, except I happen to be married to a historian. But he's an American historian, so he's been of very little help with Italy in the um, 18 or the 1700s, the
To
18th century.
educational builders
I've been
of
helped in this
educational
project by two close colleagues. One is Aldo Stern, who you can see in the picture with to which we're connected by two open water regions. Okay, well, with that background, let me tell you how this all started. In 2011, in the spring, I got an IM from a friend who said, guess what? There's this fun little Baroque sex sim that's about to close, and I need to try to convince Aldo Stern to buy it on behalf of the organization that employed him at the time, the Missouri Humanities Council. And I said, oh, okay. And she said, I need you to help me persuade Aldo to do it. And she dragged me over there. And what we found is what is probably the most prominent build on the entire island, which is shown at the top there. It's an almost exact reproduction of a very famous historical building in Italy, the uh, La Rotunda, done that was completed during the Baroque, excuse me, during the Renaissance period. And it's the model for a large number of subsequent architectural wonders of the world, including various English manor houses and even Thomas Jefferson's Monticello in Virginia. And when I went in, I experienced what you see in the two pictures just below it. Beautiful Italian marble, um, wonderful frescoes and paintings on the wall. And if you go into the center of the building and look straight up, you'll see that circular pattern, a lovely painting on the ceiling. Panning back, there was much more to the island. There was a little town at the other end of the island with various things. And Aldo had the bright idea that it could be used as a venue for bringing the humanities into the virtual world. And it needed to be seriously repurposed in order to do that. When he phoned me in my office at the university and said, I need an educational consultant, will you do it? The answer was, okay, I don't know anything, but I'll do my best. And so it was, we got started with that. He wanted to maintain the late 18th century feel of the place, and there were some reasons for that. The late 18th century was really the intellectual greenhouse for a lot of what we recognize as modern Western democracy. It was a time that was very active in all kinds of artistic fields: literature, music, art, architecture. A lot was going on historically, not only wars, but the French Revolution, for example. And it was an excellent framework within which students from a lot of disciplines could learn about various concepts that were more general than just 18th century uh, learning or events. The picture on the left there is actually Palladio's original architectural diagram for the Villa La Rotunda. And we kept the villa, we've renamed it. It's now the Villa Vesuviana because we've situated that building, our whole island, um, as being located in the Bay of Naples, Italy. It's a fictitious island. There is no such island as Rocca Sorrentina, but it's historically
The
plausible.
picture on the left there
And we
is
gave it its own
actually
history.
Palladio's
And we
original
situated it as
architectural
part of
diagram
the
for the
Kingdom
Villa
of
La
Naples and the
Rotunda.
Two Sicilies.
And we kept the villa.
That's probably
We've
not
renamed it.
a
It's now the
geographical
Villa
region you're
Vesuviana
familiar with.
because
But in the
we've
late 18th
situated that
century,
building,
the
our whole
Kingdom of
island.
Naples and Two Sicilies actually occupied most of the southern part of Italy, south of Rome. And we picked as our time frame a year that was exactly 230 years before the current year. Back then, of course, that was 1781. But as we've progressed over time, we keep advancing 1 year at a time, and we're now in the year 1793. What we managed to do is to attract a certain number of real life experts in various aspects of life in 18th century Italy. We have a professor of archaeology, we have a professor of law, we have various art historians, and we even have a bona fide Italian contessa who helps us get everything right. We Each of us has a role play persona. Aldo Stern is the professore, il professore, and he plays a former Jesuit priest who is into all kinds of intrigue and so on. And I play a British wife of a knight who actually my husband's avatar is the titular governor because they don't appoint women governors in the 18th century, who has gone off on business, is rarely on the island, and has left everything to me. So that gives you a sense of the people that we have around us. We found out early on that our brilliant little island had a number of things that needed to be fixed or changed. For one thing, the vast majority of the then 16,000 prims that were allowed on a single region back then, most of them were taken up by the villa itself. And so we had to do some repairs to take out a lot of the extra prims that were largely invisible and replace them with lower prim things. We also discovered that a lot of the buildings in our cute little town that extends up the hillside there in a very Italian fashion were in fact just blocks with roof blocks on the top and were not actually habitable homes. So we spent a lot of time redesigning and reconfiguring the landscape so that people could actually move into them and use them. And so we managed to create a large number of spaces that we can actually house the people who want to be part of the project. Um, in addition to repurposing things that needed to be redesigned, we also built a few new buildings. The building down there at the bottom is actually a two-story condominium right now. Uh, and that was the first thing that I ever built in Second Life. And it was a work of blood, sweat, and tears to actually get it wedged into the hillside there in a way that every room there in the building had windows. But our goal was to create an accurate 18th century town. And to do that, and also an 18th century town that would allow us to do intellectual things. So, in addition to repurposing buildings so that they could become residences, we also decided that we would turn a former casino that was on the island into what we call the Academia. And the Academia has now two stories. It was a glorious one-story casino. We turned it into a two-story building because it was so tall. And on the lower floor, we have actually our library, which has a virtual library collection of 18th century publications that you can access. They're all, you know, open source publications. And so you can get books from our library and read them. On the second floor, we've put in what's called a cabinet of curiosities at the time, and it's a museum of the kinds of artifacts that would have been in a museum at that point in time, along with various learning supports, like a display of scientific equipment from the 18th century. There were other buildings that we needed to do something about. The building at the bottom that you see there, it was actually designed by the original builder of the region as an Eastern Orthodox church, and we have another church that's up on the hill, which we've kept, but we decided that in the interest of keeping the spirits among us, we would turn that Orthodox church into a tavern. Um, and it now serves as our taverna um, on the first floor, and it has a billiards room on the upper floor. The billiards room has a spectacular uh, um, religious symbol on the inside, and I didn't take a picture of it, but you should come by and take a look. It's really quite an unusual billiards room. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. Okay, go on. But there was another need, and that was to create a large group event space. There wasn't one on the island, but there was a considerable amount of empty real estate on the far side of our island. And so what we decided to do was to build a place where we could do those kinds of events. And what we chose to do was to create a version of the Bosco Parasio in Rome, which is the site of the Arcadian Poet Society and Debate Society. And so we built our own version of that. You can see it down below. It's a place where we have invited speakers talk about their research and their work. We also have a monthly Baroque music event. In fact, it's going to happen again this upcoming Sunday. If you'd like to come by at 10 a.m. Second Lifetime, you can come and join us. Um, and so we have a lot of our large group events. It's basically an amphitheater that will seat 60 people if it needs to, but usually the events aren't quite that large. In addition to those kinds of spaces, we've also created a number of galleries and exhibits. Many of those exist up on the landing platform, which is high above the actual island. But we have two standing exhibits. One is called Journeys of the Heart and Mind, which actually talks about the European Grand Tour, because we fancy our island as being basically a tourist trap spot on the Grand Tour, and many of our builds on the island are in service of that. Our Grand Tour exhibit also includes a very good replica of the Hall of Mirrors from the Palace of Versailles. And that's because Versailles was an important stop for many people on the Grand Tour. If you were important enough, you could actually go to Versailles early in the morning and watch Marie Antoinette get dressed. Our other main exhibit is Discovering a Lost Kingdom. Since nobody knows anything about the Kingdom of Naples and Two Sicilies, we've put together an exhibit that talks about what it was and what kinds of activities took place in Naples. We have a couple of other smaller galleries, one in the town at ground level itself, which contains works of 18th century art generally, and a showcase gallery which has revolving exhibits of photography and art.
Being basically a tourist trap.
Change over 2 or 3 times a year. Okay. We've entertained a large number of student groups. Many of them do projects on our area, and including students who come in museum studies who help us put together some of the displays in our exhibits. But what I want to talk to you about a little bit is a recent project which is trying to create an immersive experiential learning situation to help people understand what it was like for ordinary people to live in 18th century Italy. And in service of that, in 2019, I built a platform that extends over both regions that covers the Italian Campania, which is a rural region that extends eastward from Naples and is really, in many respects, the breadbasket of Italy. Of course, once you have a rural region, you have to have a farm. And here you see our fattoria. And it and you can see that I turned into a farmer. I've got a picture here of me with my cow, Portia. Portia's the one on the right, I'm the one on the left. And I also have a dung heap, among other things, which turns out to be pretty important. Um, what we wanted to do was to create and script era appropriate products and tools for doing everyday tasks, to create an economic system that would support buying and selling and how it was like to live in these times. And we did it by putting it together with an easy to use HUD. I'm going to skip over this slide. Some people will say, well, why didn't you use DFS farming? Um, it's because it doesn't have the right kinds of products. And it doesn't, and the system requires a lot of inventory. You can literally have thousands of their products sitting around in your inventory, which you don't need. And DFS is not free. So we wanted to make our own system that could be used by students and not cost them an arm and a leg in Linden's. The person you see in the pictures is my friend Banjo, who is one of our workers on the island. And he is our oleologist, which means that he produces olive oil. And to do that, he has to do several different kinds of farming tasks, each of which has a place that you do it. And here he is creating compost with which he will feed the olive trees. He needs to collect some of material from the dung heap along with some leaves and so on. And he uses that along with water that comes from a watering can that the tree will give him when he starts the planting process. And 2 days later, the tree will be ready for harvesting. And when you harvest the tree, you stand there and pick olives, and you eventually get delivered to you a little bushel basket um, of olives, which you can see two of on the ground in front of Banjo in the second picture. And then finally, you dump all of your olives into the olive press and you grind them around and you end up getting a bottle of olive oil. That's how it works in general. Now, we have lots of other crafts and 18th century activities, including a variety of cooking, baking, also candle making, soap making, and so on. While you're doing all your chores, you have to worry about how you're doing health-wise. You have to attend to your hunger level, and we have foods that will keep your hunger away. You also have to rest from time to time. You have to attend to your hygiene, wash up, and you have to attend to your social needs, which you can do either by socializing with other people who are part of the system or by carrying around one of your pets, like the cat that Banjo's carrying there. And finally, let me give you a quick look at the HUD, the Age of Reason HUD, which helps you keep track of all of your needs, and it also totals up. It's basically a record keeping system for all of the things you have, how many olives you have, how many units of wheat you've grown in your field, what food you have, how much money you have, and it allows you to track your progression in various skills like picking olives and sowing wheat and oats and barley. So I don't have time to really go into it in any detail, but we're hoping that that's the kind of immersive environment that some educators might want to make use of to give their students a sense of what it was like to live in the 18th century. So with that, I'll stop. And I
Thank you very much, Sarah. Yes, we're going to hold questions until the end, but you may write questions in text and we will keep track of them. All right, Dodge, you're next.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. In January of 2012, I was asked to assume the management of NOVA's program in Second Life, and I became the estate manager. You're seeing the region as it looks today in this picture. Um, At the time, there were no student activities at Nova. It was totally informational. They had information about the college, about different programs, how to enroll, how to pay for it, all that stuff. But there were no student activities there at all. Um, Today, 12 years later, we have 27 activities there that are student activities. They have all been done. Students have worked with all these activities, and each of these activities has a handout that guides the students through the activity. Now, I'm not a very good builder. I could do some basic building, but I'm not a great builder. So, how in the world did we get all these 27 activities? So, in these 15 minutes I have, well, I'm going to try how did Nova populate its region with these 27 different activities? And the first thing is I cannot emphasize enough networking. Now, VWEC is all about networking, but if you're coming into Second Life as an educator, you need to network immediately. You need to start going to the education groups. You need to visit educational regions, see what they're doing, meet the people that are running those things, see how the students are using things, really network as much as you can. And the payoff is that if you see a bill that's like, oh, wow, this is amazing, like Sarah's there, and you're a historian of European history, 18th century history, you can go, Sarah, can I bring my students there? And almost everybody says yes. It's not a problem. Bring your students. So initially, we had Nova students going to Genome, Max Chatnoir's build on genetics, and they're doing the cell biology and some of the genetics activities there. We had students going to a region called Biome. Northern Michigan University had that. There are some models there they were using. We had students going to Ohio State University. They had an amazing build on the development of sperm and eggs and humans, how that worked. And so you don't have to build everything is the point there too. You can go out and use things other people have built, but you've got a network to find those things and get out and look at them. And the really cool thing, and the really next thing is that sometimes people start giving you things to put to your own um, on your own region. So I'm so grateful that uh, Max Chat Noir gave us things from Geno on cell biology. This is a scripted thing. It's a cell that these Nova students are inside, and organelles are moving around inside of that cell, and it's just an amazing thing. This is one of the 10 that she gave us. This is another one. This is the macromolecule activity. This is the most used activity by students at Nova, and it came from Genome. And Max put it in there. Max actually, I just gave her the space and the prims, and she built the whole thing out there. So it's really an amazing build. Um, Stephen Zutfly had at Genome, he had two activities on natural selection, one for prokaryotes like bacteria, as you're seeing here, and one for eukaryotes, which dealt with moss. And so we were able to acquire that. And that sits at a platform in the sky at Nova. And it's amazing activity. Biome, when they closed, they gave us the models. One is a throat model and one's an ear model. Here you're seeing the ear model. Totally gifted to Nova. I didn't have to build anything. Okay. I had a faculty member at Nova who teaches Chinese language, and she was wanting to do an activity in Second Life, bringing in her students and students from a university in China, and they were mixing here and talking. Kaylee West at Monash University in Melbourne, Australia, he teaches Chinese there, has Chinese. He has a lot of Chinese builds there. He just gave me this. It's just there, a place where the students could go in and talk and meet and do things. And it's just amazing. So again, I didn't build anything. We had Tidewater Community College um, in Virginia, another community college in Virginia. They had a region in Second Life, and one of their faculty members had put together anatomy and physiology activity. And this is in anatomy and physiology, just a ton of terms. You got to know all the parts of the body, all the molecules and things that are in the blood and stuff. And he had up these screens that you could work through these screens, clicking on the green arrows, and you could go through. It's kind of like flashcards. And students really liked this. And so when Tidewater closed, they brought that to Nova. So of the 27 activities we have at Nova, 16 were given to us. We got those 16 because I was just networking with everybody I could network with. And we had these great activities that they had. And I'd say, yeah, bring those to Nova if they are closing down, if that region's closing down. Or Max just sent them to us, and it was great. And she actually built it there. So 27, 16 are given. We have 11 more to go. I built 6. This is the first thing I built. This is an activity where students just basically copy these spherical prims that are colored, and they're set to size for different atoms. You got hydrogen and carbon and oxygen in here. And a student moves those together and creates a glucose molecule. So you can see a glucose molecule in a textbook, or you can see it on a video or something. But when you actually build it, you really understand it well. They also did amino acids. They also did nucleic acids. And so they're building these things, physically moving these prims around to build these molecules. Interesting that for the first 2 years I was in Second Life, the state manager at Nova would not let me build anything at Nova. They didn't want anything messed up at Nova. So Tidewater Community College gave me a parcel to do whatever I wanted on. And so this is where this first went in. When I became the state manager at Nova, I brought it there. But the interesting thing about this is that I learned if a faculty member wants to build something, we get it built. And so one of the things that we have built at Nova, because faculty members have said, I'd really like to have this if I could. And if you want that, we'll get it for you. Nova, we have on the real campus, we have a forest that students would go out and do a ecology activity, measuring number of trees of different species and stuff. Well, that's difficult to do in a night lab. It's difficult to do on a rainy day. There are lots of ticks in the forest, so we put it in a Second Life. Just created the exact same lab, but in Second Life without any of the limitations that we had in the real world. We have 2 biodiversity activities. This is a flatworm moving around in a petri dish. You can buy most of these organisms in Second Life, so I didn't build the organisms, I bought them. And we put, so the students would go, they get a note card by clicking on that orange sign behind there, would give them a lot of information about the animal or the plant. And then they would put it into the appropriate phylum, the phylum for one of the phylum for the animal kingdom, or the phylums for the plant kingdom. And so this is an activity that I was able to build, and it's at Nova still. We needed a little help on this because there's some plant phyla that you cannot buy in Second Life. So cornworts and liverworts, 2 phyla of plants, or 10 plant phyla. I had to get someone to build those for me, but otherwise I was able to create this activity at Nova. We have an art gallery. In fact, we put the second floor of the building into student art gallery. This is the professor there. She brings her student art in. I've taught her how to put the textures onto these prims. Create this. Sometimes I have to go in and do some fine tuning on the. We have an art gallery. In fact, by and large, she put the second floor of the building into student art gallery. Online class. The students never see each other, but they can come into here in Nova region and look at this gallery and see the other student art that they're looking at. And the last thing that I put in here was a poster session area where students actually make a poster. They're graded on the aesthetics, the layout of the poster, as well as the content. And this is good preparation for their senior year, or maybe a graduate studies where they go to a conference, they'd actually do a poster. So they've actually done a poster here and learned how that works. So those are the 6 things I did. So we have 16 gifted to us, 6 that I did, that's 22. We still have for 27. Things changed. Mesh came into the world, and so I don't build in Mesh, and I don't do scripting very well. I buy scripts and put them into things, but I don't code. So when we wanted to do some working with Mesh and building some activities there, Nova has a foundation that gives grants out every year up to $3,000. And I just put in a proposal for $3,000 for builds on the Second Life region and that Nova has, and they funded it. So I had $3,000 to play with. I hired a builder. Now, these are not builders that I don't know. These are people I've been working with and knowing through networking for several years and done things with. And I know they are good builders and I trust them. And they came in. This is the Kayab wall of the Grand Canyon, 11 different strata there. This was put in, it's in mesh. It saves a whole lot of prims when you put things in mesh as opposed to just the standard prims. And so, we built this and students walk down this staircase down the wall, look at all 11 of those strata, get information on the geology and the fossils of that. So that was one that was built for us. We built two models. One's a brain and one's a motor neuron. The brain was requested by a psychology professor, and it's there. It's great. This is the motor neuron, which we cover pretty much in some of our basic biology classes. Students could go in. They would get a table that had the names of the parts of the motor neuron, and they would put the number next to the name to the correct part, and so they could work that out. Now, none of these had scripting. This builder that I was using at this time did not do scripting, but she was a good builder. She could put things together. She could make this molecule here. And my job was to make sure the science is right. Their job was to make sure that the buildings worked well. So we had another grant go into the foundation, another $3,000. I hired another builder who's a scripter, and she built, this is the plant science, and we didn't really have a good plant science activity there. So we had, we needed to do something more with plant science. So we put this in, and lots of things move around here. You can watch water go from the soil into a root, up the xylem to a leaf and evaporate. You can watch on top of that flower, there's a pollen grain, and the pollen tube's coming down. That pollen tube will grow down the style there. And a generated cell comes down, divides into two sperm that move down there, double fertilization in plants. This is all moving. This is very well scripted. It's an amazing build. It really is. And the other thing we have, well, the first builder, she redid the big building we have there and in mesh, and we reduced the prims by half. So we saved a whole lot of prims there. And she built a medical clinic. There are no activities in there though at that time. But now the second builder put in an activity in the medical clinic, and this is a cardiopulmonary activity. Students come in, you can see those numbers 1, 2, 3. When they click on that, each of those is a different medical scenario, medical problem. When they click on that, they get a HUD. With that HUD, they either a note card, the handouts tell them, direct them through all this. They either go on the exercise bike or the treadmill. A bunch of wires get hooked up to their chest. And as they're exercising, you can see that board off to the left there on the wall. All these numbers appear on there, and graphs and things are moving across that. That's all scripted by this builder. And from that, when they finish, it's a 10-minute exercise. They actually get that as a texture given to them. And from that, they're able to tell what the medical issue was. So whoops, that's not me. So we have these 27 activities there. I built 6, 16 were given to us, and 5 I've worked with really good builders to put together. And that's how we get it. And so what I'm wanting to present to you here is how do we do this? How do we make this? Now, if you're want to know some more basics, like how do we put a, I'm trying to copy something here as I do talk, but how are we going to do each one of these builds? There's quite a process that goes into the first time I want to put this build together. How do you do that? And what do you, how does all that going to work for you? You want to, that's quite a process. And I could talk for an hour about that for every build we do there. It's quite, working your way through that is quite a process. So what we do, they have a virtual worlds we have a virtual worlds teaching manual, and I'm trying to get that. I'll put this up a little bit later, maybe in on chat. But you can go in there and look at that, and it talks about how you build an individual thing, the process you go through. Also, I'm going to put up the slur for Nova. It's open. Come visit it. I've had people in VWEC go there, and almost every one of these activities has an orange sign there. You click on that, you get the student handout as a note card, and you can work your way through it. So I'm going to stop there and move on. We can move on to the next person. Taking questions at the end.
Okay, thank you, Dodge. Thank you so much. These are all so informative presentations. Now we will go to student experiences, and Zinnia is going to speak on behalf of one of the students who could not make it and tell us what she has been doing. This is Rachel Wolf I'm talking about. So Zinnia, it's all yours.
Great, thank you very much. I'm going to be passing a note card after I speak that will have a lot of information that you may be trying to grab. So I'm here to represent Ray, and Ray is a former multimedia communication student of mine at Peninsula College. She was also an honor student who worked on a special capstone project in Second Life and is currently one of our college tutors. She's an excellent example of a student that has encouraged others to do more by working in virtual worlds. Building and creating a welcoming space has inspired many students beyond her. My students build interactive and engaging spaces to learn about themselves and the hero's journey that the college student experiences. Ray has had the opportunity to work and create in several virtual platforms, and Second Life is her favorite. As a student, she opened her classmates' eyes to how video games taught her many skills and life lessons. She was perfect for working in virtual worlds and building teams across the country. So my college is in Washington State, and she lives on the East Coast in Pennsylvania. Ray used imagination and the magic of playful problem solving to tackle assignments. She explored avatar formation in my classes, and she found that taking the form of a wolf was an excellent personal branding with her last name, and it created comfort to those who encountered her in world. This goal of care and comfort led her to her multimedia communications honor project. The Reflection Pond was the name of her project and the location in Second Life on our digital storytelling sim. I think some of you have actually had a chance to visit the Reflection Pond in several of the presentations that my students have done for different organizations, and we're really grateful that you visited them. Later, you can watch her video about our project, and this link will be in the note card that I passed to you. Her goal was to create a peaceful, welcoming space where people can connect and have a sense of belonging. Ray would devise her virtual build goals and give me a shopping list. It was lots of fun because we both loved doing this together, and yet she was the one who did all the curation and suggesting and built some of her own objects to make it happen. She wanted to build a place that was much like her grandmother's backyard. It was filled with animals, plants, trees, and a calming pond with the peaceful nature sounds. Her project inspires future Peninsula College students to learn through building. When we were working on a project this quarter, several of the students all went to the pond and said, "Can we work here?" And we decided we were going to build a brand new spot that is inspired by the Reflecting Pond. The experience of building is empowering and filled with opportunities to teach others through the process. My courses often require exploration of social enterprise and to be in service with others. Ray's work is a shining example of this goal by creating a space that welcomes people to connect and to support each other. And you will also get this link in the note card where you can visit it anytime. So through this work, Ray presented at the Virtual World's Best Practices in Education this past March about how learning in virtual worlds help tackle issues with perfectionism. How many of you guys had a chance to see Ray in action? Yay! Excellent. Yay! Not only did she do a great presentation, but she inspired many students to want to do their own now. So she is an excellent cheerleader to make things happen. This was a topic that she experienced as a student and now as one of our multimedia tutors dealing with perfectionism. I often tell my students, let's focus on idealism, not perfectionism. And you can see her presentation at this link again. It'll be in the note card. Please watch it later and let us know what your thoughts are about that. She shared how Second Life became a safe space. Working and building in virtual spaces gave students freedom to make mistakes and to support each other. Practice instead of perfection became a way to research a teaching method and to change habits of self-doubt. Ray is happy to share her work and how her experience of making led to more learning and teaching. Her leadership continues to encourage all who meet her and experience her beautiful virtual space to inspire courage. I am grateful for Ray's work and the opportunity to express how proud I am of her. And you will also be able to explore Ray's portfolio, and this is also in the note card. And I want to say thank you very much. If you haven't had a chance to
Builds it on
visit
the second line.
Ray's build, this is a really great example of how a student's mind is changed by the process of building in a virtual space, and how much she wanted to share with others along the way. And now she gets to teach too. Thank you, and I'll pass you the note card.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So interesting and so helpful. Our final speaker of the day is Chandra Lee. Chandra Lee Hardesty, and I will turn the mic over to you, Chandra.
All right, I had to get that note card first. Hi, everyone. My name is Leah Hardesty, and I go by Chandra. I have a master's in organizational learning and instructional technology and a doctorate in organization, information, and learning sciences from the University of New Mexico. I've worked in higher education administration for over 20 years, and I'm excited to be here today to talk about my experiences with active learning and Second Life. So I'm going to share the seminal definition of active learning as a reference point. So Charles Bonwell and James Eason said, active learning is anything that involves students in doing things and thinking about the things they are doing. So since 1991, there's a lot of active learning going on in classrooms. And the definition looks deceptively easy to accomplish. You think, I'll engage my learners with activities that help them critically reflect on the course material, but what activities do I use? So this is a brainstorming image that I created. It came from a Queen's University Teaching and Learning module in the University of Minnesota Center for Educational Innovation. And it's just a quick overview of types of active learning strategies that can be developed for a class. Looks great. It's a list to engage learners. However, when I read this list, I noticed that they all apply to face-to-face classrooms. So now that I have all these great ideas, how do I implement them in a virtual world? So through building in a virtual environment, you can bring these strategies to life. And so here's my example of being a student and how I experienced active learning in Second Life. I took Ellie's class through the University of New Mexico in 2013. It's been a while. And I bet she didn't know that I still have her syllabus. She taught an educational technology course about how to connect the transfer of learning at a distance, which is critical to the development of course materials for online learning. So I've highlighted the active learning components that I identified with that came out of her syllabus. Understanding the tool and what it is capable of helps meet an online course's learning objectives. So active engagement in activities like these empower students to create their own learning experiences. And it sure did me. So for this example, and from the perspective of Second Life as a learning environment, first, you need an introduction to a new learning platform. So step one was avatar creation, and we did scavenger hunts because you have to learn basic how to move around and teleport, the environment, get familiar with the environment. And after the basics comes the realization that there are other real people here in Second Life, and you can talk to them, and they'll respond to you. So back in 2013, this was really novel. I had my very first experience with that was I went to, I think it's still even here. I'm forgetting the name of the bar, and I remember this was the assignment, was to talk to somebody randomly, ask them questions, and put it in the interview. And it worked. I was so excited. I was excited that there were people here and they were willing to talk to me, all those little green dots. So making the connections from the real life to the Second Life from a student perspective, I feel is important. It makes the virtual in-world experience real for the students. Collaboration with people in Second Life builds the sense of social presence when avatars are present with each other. And together, that awareness has the potential to transfer to other present students, just like it would in a face-to-face class. So during the class in Second Life, we learned about machinima, we learned about storytelling, we learned about role play, we developed a project and built it to teach someone something else in Second Life. And then we reflected on this experience in the end and what part of the building experience worked or didn't work. So if you go to YouTube, my videos from 2013 are there from this class. And one of our projects was to develop a think book where we would highlight what we learned on our scavengers hunts, who we interviewed, and what they talked about with us. And students had problems with the think book. So my first video I created was how to upload textures into your think book. This helped me on how to learn how to make the video for the group project. So my second video is the collaborative project we designed, and our topic was New Mexico landscape and a cactus museum. And we built almost all of it with prims, except for a couple of the cactus that I found free, and we learned how to use Sculpties. So when connecting technology and education from an instructional design point of view, it's important to consider the affordances the technology offers and build experiences that align with what's available. So my images here are examples of activities that I've taken part of in Second Life, and they represent active learning strategies. So yes, I'm an advocate for teaching in virtual worlds. It all starts with a prim. Building and creating in Second Life has helped me learn how technology can help students meet their class learning objectives. Second Life has many affordances, and you just have to learn how to bring them out. And then the student gets the idea, and then we learn how to bring it to life in 3D, just like what's happening in the student challenges. And I cannot wait to see the results. So here are my references, and thank you all for being present. I appreciate you.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. And we have just a few minutes left for questions. You can text them, and or you can speak in voice. Before we do that, let me thank the group as a whole. This has been such an informative session, and I commend you on what you're doing, and I wish you the best of good fortune as you continue to pursue your dreams here. This is what makes SL such a valuable asset to all of us, what you folks are doing as a part of your work. So, are there questions?
Yes.
Yeah, Shiloh.
This would actually be for all of the presenters, and Dodge has a heads up on it because he's the one that has often talked about creating exhibits, interactive, with feedback from students so that you would know how to develop the curriculum. Now that you've all developed projects and that Italian, you know, village is just amazing. Okay. And I want to thank all of you for doing an excellent presentation. We've been coming up during this past year and a half of new and innovative things like the bots that can help you out and maybe touching something and having a pop-up come up. In a sentence or two, what do you think would be the one or two newer innovations that you would try to integrate and improve your overall exhibit or the whole sim that you work with?
Any responses? We only have a few minutes here, so feel free to respond.
I can share that my students are interested in having more integration with augmented reality in Second Life so that they could scan specific things and images and such, and it'll show up on their phone, and that would help bridge that gap that we've had with a generation that's more focused on their phone.
Thank you, Zinnia.
And I understand that Linden Labs is just about to launch where you can go in on iPads and phones and stuff like that. It'll be a great help for our students. We definitely want to push that forward. Do handouts for that.
We're not going to be probably doing that much on phones and iPads, maybe iPads, but probably not phones. It's too small. But we have a number.
Okay, I'm hearing. Am I hearing a question? I'm sorry if.
Sarah? Hello? Oh, let me rephrase that. We have a number of bots,
Okay.
unanimated NPCs around our little town, and they could actually all be used to tell stories if we did it right. To respond to people touching them, and they could actually give the history or explain the jobs that they do or things like that. So that would be one thing that I would think about doing, assuming I can do it within the prim count on the region.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Since we are running up against the top of the hour, let me conclude with a few announcements and then invite you to go back to our reception area and continue asking questions of our guests today, our presenters. And as I said before, we want to give our participants a hearty thank you for their presentations. Please note that the next installment of the VWEC Expert Series will be on Friday, December 8th at 1 o'clock p.m. SLT. We will host a distinguished panel of experts on AI as they discuss and or debate the strengths and weaknesses of this budding technology. You will not want to miss it. There will be no presentation on November 24th because of the holiday schedule. But here's one event I really want to stress. On November 22, 9 o'clock in the morning SLT, it will be party time. A grateful gathering celebration of all the people involved in VWEC and their friends and anybody else who wants to show up. Details are posted on a nearby sign containing a note card, and I invite you to take a look at the sign and the note card. We have a special treat. The DJ will be Tori Landau, and yes, put on your dancing clothes. This is time for otherwise staid academics to let it go. Finally, you can find links to our in-world calendar and related helpful information in the material that I will add to the text here in just a moment. And we can be reached through a variety of media. Once again, please see the text insertions that I make. So on behalf of VWEC, thank you for coming today. This was a real treat for me, and I know it had to be a real treat for you. Let's continue it in the back, and let me wish you a great weekend. So thank you very much. Have a good day.